If you can play Chopin's Nocturne in C minor, I'll marry you on the spot." Harper Quinn didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. The janitor, a broad-shouldered man in his late 30s pushing a mop bucket, stopped mid-stride. He turned slowly. His eyes, a strange shade between gray and green, locked onto hers. "That's not a piece you play because someone dares you," he said quietly. "It's prayer set to music." She laughed. He didn't. What she didn't know? This man once made concert halls weep. And before the story ends, he'll make her do the same. Drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? I want to see how far this story travels. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. You won't want to miss what happens next. The fluorescent lights of Lyra Records hummed like a dying heartbeat at 11:47 p.m. Harper Quinn stepped out of the executive elevator, heels striking marble with the precision of a metronome. Her phone glowed in her hand. Emails, contracts, investor demands, the usual symphony of chaos that scored her life. She was exhausted. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that settles into your bones after years of proving yourself to men who never believed you belonged in the room. 38 years old, CEO of the biggest independent record label on the East Coast. And still, every board meeting felt like a courtroom where she was both defendant and judge. The lobby stretched before her, glass walls, steel beams, and at its center, like a forgotten altar, the grand piano her father had installed 20 years ago. Back when this company was his. Back when music meant something more than quarterly earnings. She barely glanced at it anymore. But tonight, someone was there. A man knelt beside the piano, cloth in hand, polishing the brass pedals with the kind of care most people reserved for newborns or sacred texts. The janitor. Harper had seen him before, always in the background, always invisible. That's how it worked in buildings like this. The people who kept everything running were the ones nobody saw. She kept walking toward the side exit, then stopped. Something about the way he touched the piano made her pause. Not cleaning it, caring for it, like it was alive, like it remembered something he couldn't forget. "You know," she said, her voice cutting through the silence, "that piano hasn't been played in 3 years." The man didn't flinch, didn't turn, just kept polishing. "I know," he said. His voice was calm, low. The kind of voice that didn't need volume to command attention. Harper crossed her arms. Most people would have looked up by now. Most people want to be seen. He folded the cloth carefully, precisely, like he was folding a flag. "I'm not most people." She should have walked away. She had a car waiting, a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home, a glass of wine that wouldn't drink itself. But something in his stillness irritated her, or intrigued her. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. "You seem to know a lot about pianos," she said. "For a janitor." He stood slowly, turned, and for the first time their eyes met. Harper felt something shift. Not attraction, not yet. Something older. Recognition. Like meeting someone you'd known in a dream you couldn't quite remember. "I know enough," he said. She tilted her head, studying him. Late 30s. Strong jaw. Hands that looked like they'd built things, and broken them too. But his eyes were what caught her. They held something she rarely saw in men who worked for her. Dignity. The kind that couldn't be bought or sold. "What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Cole." "Well, Marcus Cole." She walked closer, stopping just feet from the piano. "Since you're such an expert, let me ask you something. Do you play?" He was silent for a long moment. I used to. Used to, Harper laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Everyone used to do something. I used to believe in fairy tales. Then I grew up. Marcus didn't react, didn't defend himself, just watched her with those unreadable eyes. And that silence, that absolute refusal to perform for her, made something reckless rise in Harper's chest. The same thing that made her fight her way to the top. The same thing that kept her awake at night, wondering if the top was worth the climb. "Tell you what," she said, her voice turning sharp, playful, dangerous. "If you can play Chopin's Nocturne in C minor, right now, on this piano, I'll marry you on the spot." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus didn't smile, didn't flinch, didn't look impressed or insulted. He simply said, "That's not a piece you play because someone dares you, Miss Quinn. It's prayer set to music." Harper blinked. No one spoke to her like that. Not the board members who questioned her decisions. Not the artists who threw tantrums over contract terms. Not even the men who'd tried and failed to love her over the years. "You know who I am," she said. "I know you signed my paychecks. And yet you're lecturing me about Chopin." "I'm not lecturing." Marcus picked up his bucket. "I'm just telling you the truth. That piece wasn't written for dares or parties or proving points. It was written by a man who understood loss. Real loss. The kind that lives in your chest like a second heartbeat." Harper's jaw tightened. "You speak like someone who's played it." "I've played a lot of things." He turned toward the service hallway. "Doesn't mean I still do." "Why not?" He paused, his back still to her. "Because some things stop belonging to you when you stop needing them to survive." And then he was gone. Disappeared into the bowels of the building like he'd never existed at all. Harper stood alone in the lobby, the piano gleaming beside her, and realized her hands were shaking. She didn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m., Harper sat in her penthouse, laptop open, wine untouched, searching. Marcus Cole, Janitor, Lyra Records. Nothing. Marcus Cole, pianist. Nothing. M. Cole, classical music. Still nothing. She was about to give up when she tried one more variation. E. Cole, piano, competition. A single result. A grainy photo from a Montreal newspaper dated 2005. A young man, early 20s, dark hair, intense eyes, seated at a grand piano. The caption read, "E. Cole, finalist, St. George Classical Showcase. Considered a rising star." Harper enlarged the image, studied the face. The eyes were the same, that strange shade between gray and green, that same stillness. She scrolled further. E. Cole disappeared from the classical circuit in 2009. No official statement. Career status, unknown. Disappeared, just like that. A rising star, gone. No scandal, no farewell tour, no interviews, just silence. Harper leaned back, heart pounding. The janitor pushing a mop through her building at midnight was once a man people thought would become legend. What happened to him? And why did he walk away? The next morning, Harper did something she'd never done before. She arrived early. Not for meetings, not for calls, just early. Standing by the window of her office, watching the lobby below, waiting. At 6:15 a.m., Marcus Cole walked in through the service entrance. Same uniform, same quiet dignity, same invisible presence that somehow commanded the entire space. He didn't look up, didn't scan for witnesses, just went to work. Harper watched him for nearly an hour. Watched him clean windows with mechanical precision. Watched him organize supply closets no one else cared about. Watched him pause, just once, at the piano. His hand rested on the lid, just for a moment, like he was saying hello to an old friend he couldn't bring himself to embrace. Then he walked away. Harper's phone buzzed. Jennifer, her assistant, with the day's agenda. "Cancel my 9 o'clock, Harper said. "Cancel? But the Berlin Philharmonic rep is flying in for—" "I said cancel it." Silence. "Yes, Miss Quinn." Harper hung up and headed for the stairs. She found him in the basement, sorting recycling bins. "We need to talk." Marcus didn't look up. "About what?" "About who you really are." He paused, slowly turned. His face was unreadable, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I'm a janitor, 3rd shift, 6 months on the job. Anything else?" "Don't." Harper stepped closer. "I found the article. St. George Classical Showcase, 2005. Rising Star. Ring any bells?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. That was another life. "What happened to it?" "It ended." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." Harper crossed her arms. "You were good enough to compete at the highest levels. Good enough to make a career out of it. And now you're sorting trash at midnight in a building full of people who can't play half as well as you probably could? You don't think that deserves an explanation?" Marcus set down the bin he was holding. Slowly, deliberately, like every movement cost him something. "Let me ask you something, Miss Quinn. Why do you work 18-hour days? Why do you run a company your father built instead of building your own? Why do you stand in lobbies at midnight, taunting janitors, instead of going home to someone who loves you?" Harper's face went cold. "Excuse me? You want my story? Fine. But you don't get to stand there pretending you're not running from something too." The silence between them was electric. Dangerous. Harper could have fired him. Could have had security escort him out within minutes. Could have erased him from her building, the way she'd erased so many other inconveniences over the years. Instead, she said, "My father told me I wasn't worth hearing. I was 12. I haven't touched a piano since." Marcus's expression shifted. Not pity, something deeper. Understanding. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't want your sorry." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I want to know why you stopped. Because if someone with your talent can walk away, then maybe—" She stopped, caught herself. Marcus waited. "Maybe what?" he asked quietly. Harper looked away. "Maybe I wasn't wrong to stop either." Another silence. This one softer. Less like a battlefield, more like a confession booth. "My wife died," Marcus said finally. "Cancer. Spring of 2009. Our daughter was 2 years old." Harper turned back to him. "I couldn't tour with a toddler. Couldn't teach master classes and still be there when she woke up coughing in the night. Couldn't chase standing ovations while she was chasing nightmares alone." His voice didn't break. It was steady, practiced. Like he'd told himself this story so many times it had worn smooth, like river stones. "So I chose her, and I let everything else go." Harper swallowed. "Where is she now, your daughter?" "Emma." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "She's 7, staying with a neighbor tonight. She's got her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. And she's sick." "Sick?" "Heart condition, congenital. Doctors say she needs surgery eventually. Specialist stuff. Expensive stuff." He shrugged. "Janitors don't have great insurance. Harper felt something twist in her chest. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "Don't be. She's the best thing I ever did. Better than any concert. Better than any applause." He picked up the recycling bin again. "That's the thing about sacrifice, Miss Quinn. It's not giving up something you don't want. It's giving up something you love for something you love more." Harper nodded slowly. "Your daughter," she said. "Does she know? About who you were?" Marcus smiled. "She knows I play sometimes, late at night, when she's supposed to be sleeping. She calls it Daddy's quiet music." "Does she play?" "She tries. Her fingers are still small. But she's got an ear like you wouldn't believe. Perfect pitch. Knows when a note is even a quarter tone sharp." Harper's throat tightened. "You're raising a musician." "I'm raising a daughter." Marcus met her eyes. "The music is just how we talk when words aren't enough." Harper didn't have a response to that. Nothing clever, nothing sharp, just silence. And the strange, unfamiliar feeling of being seen by someone who had no reason to look. "I should go," she said finally. "Meetings." "I'm sure." She turned toward the door, stopped. "Marcus." "Yeah?" "Next time I say something reckless, call me out. Don't just walk away." He tilted his head. "Do you say reckless things often?" "Only when I feel something I don't understand." And with that, Harper Quinn walked out of the basement, into the elevator, and back into the life she'd built. But something had shifted. A door she'd locked years ago was rattling on its hinges, and somewhere, in the silence between heartbeats, she could almost hear music. That night, the security cameras recorded something unusual. At 11:52 p.m., the grand piano in the lobby, untouched for 3 years, began to play. No one was watching the monitors. No one heard the music. But the melody drifted through the empty halls like a ghost refusing to be forgotten. And on the music stand, the next morning, the cleaning crew found a folded piece of paper. No name, no signature. Just 4 handwritten bars of music. Half a melody. A beginning. Like someone had finally remembered how. Harper found the paper before anyone else did. She'd arrived at 5:30 a.m., telling herself it was for the investor call scheduled at 7. But the truth sat heavier in her chest. She hadn't stopped thinking about Marcus Cole since their conversation in the basement. The lobby was empty. The piano gleamed under the dim morning lights. And there, resting on the music stand like a secret waiting to be discovered, was a single folded page. She picked it up, unfolded it slowly. 4 bars of handwritten music. No title, no signature. Just notes spiraling across the staff like a whisper caught mid-breath. Harper stared at it for a long time. She couldn't read music anymore, hadn't in 26 years, but something about the melody felt familiar. Like a word on the tip of your tongue that refuses to form. "You're early." She spun around. Marcus stood near the service corridor, mop in hand, watching her with those unreadable eyes. "So are you," she said. "I never left." Harper looked back at the paper. "Did you write this?" He didn't answer immediately, just walked closer, set down his mop, and stood beside her at the piano. "It's old," he finally said. "Something I started a long time ago. Never finished." "Why not?" "Because I wrote it for someone I never got to say goodbye to, and finishing it felt like admitting she was really gone." Harper's throat tightened. She understood that. The way grief could freeze you in place, terrified that any movement forward would mean leaving the person behind. "Your wife," she said quietly. "Sarah." His voice softened when he said the name. "She used to sit with me when I composed. Never played herself, but she'd listen. Tell me when something sounded true, and when I was just showing off. She sounds like she knew you. Better than I knew myself. Marcus touched the edge of the paper. She made me promise, before she died. She said, "Don't let the music die with me. Emma's going to need it." Harper looked at him. "And did you keep the promise?" "I tried, for a while. But every time I sat at a piano, I heard her voice. And then I'd hear the silence where her voice used to be. And it was easier to just stop." "That's not stopping," Harper said. "That's hiding." "Maybe." He met her eyes. "But you'd know something about that too, wouldn't you?" The words landed like a punch she hadn't seen coming. "I don't hide," she said, her voice harder than she intended. "No? Then why are you standing in your own lobby at 5 a.m, holding sheet music you can't read, talking to a janitor about a wife who died 7 years ago?" Harper opened her mouth, closed it. Marcus didn't look smug, didn't look like he was trying to win anything. He just looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying weight no one else can see. "I think we're both hiding," he said gently. "We just built different walls." Harper set the paper back on the music stand. "I should get to my office." "Probably." She took 2 steps toward the elevator, stopped. "Marcus." "Yeah?" "That piece you wrote, the unfinished one." She turned her head, not quite looking at him. "If you ever decide to finish it, I'd want to hear it." She didn't wait for his response, just walked away, heels clicking against marble, pretending her heart wasn't racing. Behind her, Marcus picked up the sheet music and folded it carefully into his pocket. For the first time in 7 years, he wondered if maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe some songs weren't meant to stay unfinished. Maybe they were just waiting for the right person to hear them. The days that followed felt different. Harper found herself looking for Marcus in the hallways, the lobby, the basement corridors where she'd never had reason to go before. She told herself it was curiosity, professional interest, research. She was lying, and she knew it. On Thursday night, she worked late again. The building emptied around 9. By 11, she was the only one left on the executive floor. She should have gone home. Instead, she took the elevator down. The lobby was dim, lit only by the emergency lights and the soft glow from the street outside. The piano sat in shadow, its surface gleaming faintly. And there was Marcus, not cleaning this time, just sitting on the bench, hands resting on the closed lid, eyes distant. Harper approached slowly. "Mind if I join you?" He looked up. "It's your building." "That's not what I asked." A pause. Then he slid over, making room on the bench. Harper sat. The wood was cool beneath her. The piano loomed before them, black and white and full of ghosts. "When's the last time you played?" Marcus asked. 26 years ago. The night my father told me to stop." "You remember it exactly?" "I remember everything. That's my curse." Marcus nodded slowly. "What did you play, that last time?" Harper closed her eyes. The memory rose unbidden, a 12-year-old girl at an upright piano, fingers stumbling over a Clementi sonatina, her father's shadow falling across the keys. "Something simple," she said. "A student piece. I made a mistake in the second movement, hit a B flat instead of B natural." My father was in the doorway. He said, "Don't touch that piano again until you're worth hearing." And you believed him. He was a brilliant man, a composer. When he said something, it was law. Harper opened her eyes. "I spent the next 26 years proving I was worth something. built this company, made millions. And every single day, his voice is still in my head, telling me I'm not enough. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he lifted the lid of the piano, exposing the keys. "Play something." Harper stiffened. "I can't." "You can. You're just scared." "I don't remember how." "Your hands remember." He gestured toward the keys. "That's the thing about music. It lives in your body, not your brain. You don't have to think. You just have to let go." Harper stared at the keys, ivory and ebony, stretching out like a road she'd abandoned decades ago. "What if I can't?" "Then you can't, and we'll sit here in the dark and no one will know but us." Marcus's voice was gentle. "But what if you can?" Her hands trembled as she lifted them, set them on the keys. The touch was cold, unfamiliar, and yet something stirred. She pressed a single note, middle C. The sound rang through the empty lobby, pure and clear and terrifying. "Keep going," Marcus whispered. She pressed another, then another. Not a song, just sounds. But with each note, something inside her began to crack. "I don't know what I'm doing," she said, her voice breaking. "Neither do I." Marcus set his hands on the higher octave. "But maybe we can not know together." He played a soft chord. She answered with a hesitant melody. Back and forth, call and response. Two strangers speaking a language they'd both forgotten. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't polished. It was broken and halting and raw. But it was real. When they finally stopped, Harper realized tears were streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her cheeks. "I don't know why I'm—" "Don't apologize." Marcus's voice was rough. "I haven't played with anyone since Sarah. I forgot what it felt like." Harper laughed, but it came out like a sob. "What does it feel like?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Like being found," he said. They sat in silence after that. The building hummed around them. The city breathed beyond the glass. Finally, Harper asked the question she'd been circling for days. "Your daughter, Emma, how bad is it?" Marcus's expression changed. The softness hardened into something more guarded. "Bad enough." "Tell me." He exhaled slowly. "Congenital heart defect. She was born with it. For a while, medication kept it under control. But last year she started having episodes. Oxygen drops. Fainting spells. Her cardiologist says she needs surgery. A specialist team, pediatric cardiac surgery. There's a program in Boston that's the best in the country. So take her there." "It's not that simple." "Money?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A janitor's salary doesn't exactly cover specialist heart surgery. I've been trying to save. Picking up extra shifts, selling everything that isn't nailed down. But the numbers don't add up. They never do." Harper felt something ignite in her chest. Not pity, she hated pity. Something fiercer, protective. "How much?" "Harper, how much do you need?" Marcus shook his head. "I'm not telling you that." "Why not?" "Because you'll try to fix it." He stood, moved away from the piano. "And this isn't something you can fix with a checkbook. I've spent 7 years learning that some problems don't have solutions. They just have choices." "That's not true." "It is true." He turned to face her. "I chose my daughter over my career. I chose survival over art. And now I'm choosing to fight for her with whatever I have, even if it's not enough. That's what being a parent means. You don't get to quit when it gets hard." Harper stood too. "I'm not asking you to quit. I'm asking you to let me help." Why? Because, she stopped, took a breath. Because when I'm with you, I remember who I was before I became this. Before the boardrooms and the power plays and the endless performance. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm just using you to feel something again. But I'd rather feel something real than keep pretending the numbness is fine. Marcus stared at her. The guard in his expression flickered. You don't even know me, he said quietly. I know you gave up everything for your daughter. I know you polish a piano you can't bring yourself to play. I know you carry sheet music you've never finished because finishing it means letting go. She stepped closer. I know you're scared. And I know you're strong enough to be scared and keep going anyway. Silence stretched between them. Then Marcus said, Emma has an appointment tomorrow. Morning. She's been asking about the piano lady. Harper blinked. The piano lady? I told her about you, just a little. She's convinced you're a secret princess who runs a castle. Harper laughed, genuinely this time. I'm about as far from a princess as you can get. I don't know. Marcus's eyes softened. Princesses in the real stories are usually fighting for something. Usually alone. Usually doubting whether they're enough. Harper didn't know what to say to that. If you want, Marcus said slowly, you could meet her, Emma. She'd like that. I'd like that too. The next morning, Harper cleared her schedule. Jennifer nearly had a heart attack. 3 meetings canceled. An investor call rescheduled. A contract review pushed back 2 weeks. Is everything okay? Jennifer asked, concern creeping into her professional tone. Everything's fine, Harper said. I just have somewhere more important to be. She met Marcus at a small clinic in Brooklyn, the kind of place that smelled like antiseptic and anxiety. The waiting room was cramped, filled with tired parents and restless children. And there, sitting in a plastic chair too big for her small body, was Emma Cole. She had her father's eyes, that strange shade between gray and green, and a smile that seemed too bright for a child who'd spent her life in hospital waiting rooms. Daddy! She jumped up when she saw Marcus, throwing her arms around his legs. You're here! Of course I'm here, Bug. He scooped her up, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I brought someone to meet you. Emma turned, saw Harper. Her eyes went wide. You're the piano lady! Harper felt something crack open in her chest. I guess I am, she said. Emma wiggled out of her father's arms and walked directly to Harper with the fearless confidence only children possess. Daddy says you have a big piano in a castle. Is it magic? Harper knelt to Emma's level. I don't know about magic, but it does make beautiful sounds when the right person plays it. Can I play it someday? Anytime you want. Emma beamed. Then, with no warning, she wrapped her small arms around Harper's neck. Harper froze. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged her. Not like this. Not with complete, unguarded trust. Slowly, she hugged back. I like you, Emma announced when she pulled away. You smell nice, like flowers. Thank you, Harper said, her voice thick. I like you too. The appointment was routine. Blood work, vitals, questions Harper only half understood. Through it all, Emma chattered constantly. About school, about her drawings, about the story she was writing about a princess who lived in a piano. The princess has to save the kingdom with music, Emma explained seriously. But she forgot how to play, so she has to learn again. Harper glanced at Marcus. He was watching his daughter with an expression of pure, unfiltered love. How does she learn? Harper asked. A knight teaches her, but he's sad because his queen died. So the princess helps him remember how to be happy, and he helps her remember how to play. Harper's throat tightened. That sounds like a beautiful story. It's not finished yet. Emma tilted her head. I don't know the ending. Maybe you'll figure it out, Harper said. Sometimes endings take time. After the appointment, they walked to a small park nearby. Emma ran ahead, chasing pigeons with more energy than any child with her condition should have. She's incredible, Harper said. She's my whole world. Marcus watched his daughter spin in circles, arms outstretched, laughing at the sky. Everything I do, everything I am, it's for her. How do you do it? How do you keep going when the odds are terrible? He laughed softly. I don't think about odds. I think about today. Today she's laughing. Today she's alive. Today I get to be her father. That's enough. Harper shook her head. You're the strongest person I've ever met.
I'm not strong. I'm stubborn. He turned to look at her. There's a difference.
What's the difference? Strong people don't break. Stubborn people break all the time. They just keep putting themselves back together. Emma came running back, out of breath, cheeks flushed. Daddy, I want ice cream. It's 10 in the morning, Bug. So? Marcus laughed. You know what? You're right. So? They walked to a small cart on the corner. Emma got strawberry. Marcus got chocolate. Harper, for reasons she couldn't explain, got vanilla. The same flavor she'd loved as a child, before her father told her vanilla was boring. They sat on the bench, eating ice cream in the morning sun, and for a few minutes, everything was simple. Then Emma said, Daddy, my chest feels funny. Marcus's face went pale. Funny how, Bug? Like butterflies, but heavy. He set down his ice cream, knelt in front of her, pressed his hand to her chest. It's okay, he said, his voice calm, even though his eyes were terrified. Just breathe with me. In and out. In and out. Harper watched, helpless, as this giant of a man became small and tender and afraid. Emma's breathing steadied. The color returned to her cheeks. Better, she said. The butterflies are sleeping now. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held her like she might disappear. Over Emma's shoulder, he met Harper's eyes. And in that look, she saw everything. The exhaustion, the fear, the desperate love of a father who'd already lost so much and couldn't bear to lose more. Harper made a decision in that moment. She didn't say it out loud, didn't make grand promises, but she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would do whatever it took to help this family. Not because she pitied them, because they had shown her something she'd forgotten existed. The kind of love that doesn't calculate costs. The kind that just holds on. 2 weeks passed, and Harper Quinn found herself living a double life. By day, she was the CEO the world expected, sharp, calculating, untouchable. She sat through board meetings with perfect posture, signed contracts without flinching, made decisions that moved millions with a single signature. By night, she was someone else. She'd wait until the building emptied, then take the elevator down to the lobby. Marcus would be there, sometimes cleaning, sometimes just sitting at the piano. And they'd talk. About everything. About nothing. About the things that lived in the spaces between words. Some nights they played together. Not real songs, just fragments. Half melodies that built on each other, like conversations in a language only they understood. Harper hadn't felt this alive in years, and that terrified her. You're different, Jennifer said one morning, setting a coffee on Harper's desk. Harper looked up. Different how? I don't know. Lighter. Like something shifted. Nothing shifted. Jennifer gave her a look that said she didn't believe a word of it, but was too professional to push. Harper returned to her emails.
But her assistant was right. Something had shifted. The question was whether she was brave enough to admit it. That Thursday night, the annual Lyra Records Gala arrived like a storm Harper had tried to forget. The event was a nightmare of logistics. A string quartet from Vienna, 300 guests, a program filled with performances that needed to go flawlessly. But at 4 p.m., everything fell apart. "The pianist is out," Jennifer said, bursting into Harper's office. "Car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but he can't perform." Harper's stomach dropped. "Find a replacement." "There's no time. Everyone we've called is booked. The program starts in 4 hours." Harper pressed her fingers to her temples. The opening segment required a piano piece, something elegant, refined, to set the tone for the evening. Without it, the entire event would feel hollow. "What about one of our signed artists?" Harper asked. "They're all out of town for the tour. We've got strings, but no keys." Harper closed her eyes. She thought of Marcus, his hands moving across the piano with a grace that made her chest ache. She could ask him. He'd say no, probably. But she could ask. Then she thought of something worse. "I'll do it," she said. Jennifer stared at her. "What?" "I'll play the opening piece. Just something simple. A few minutes to buy us time until the quartet takes over." "Harper, you don't... I didn't know you played." "I used to." Harper stood, her decision hardening into stone. "Get me a practice room. I have 4 hours to remember how." The gala was a blur of crystal chandeliers and forced smiles. Harper stood backstage, hands trembling, listening to the murmur of 300 guests who expected perfection. She hadn't performed in front of anyone since she was 12. Since the night her father's voice had stolen something from her, she was still trying to get back. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "It's just music. It's just notes. It's just..." Her name was announced. Harper walked onto the stage, her heels echoing, her heart pounding so loud she was sure the audience could hear it. The grand piano sat center stage, gleaming under the lights. She sat down, placed her hands on the keys. And for a moment, she couldn't remember anything. Her mind went blank. The melody she'd practiced for 4 hours vanished. All she could see was her father's face. All she could hear was his voice. "Don't touch that piano again until you're worth hearing." She pressed the first note. It was wrong. She tried again. Wrong again. The audience shifted. Someone coughed. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Harper forced herself to keep going. Her hands stumbled through the piece. Bach, the same piece Marcus had played that night in the storage bay. But where his version had been prayer, hers was panic. She rushed the transitions, her left hand locked up. She hit a wrong chord and couldn't recover. 3.5 minutes. It felt like 3.5 years. When she finally played the last note, the applause was polite, confused. The kind of applause you give when you don't know what else to do. Harper stood, bowed, and walked off stage with as much dignity as she could fake. She made it to the service exit before the tears came. The night air hit her like a slap, cold, sharp, indifferent to her humiliation. She pressed her back against the brick wall and let herself break. 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes of absolute failure in front of everyone who mattered. The board members, the investors, the artists who counted on her to be untouchable. And then she heard it. Music. Soft at first, drifting through the chaos of the loading dock. Then clearer, stronger. Bach. The same piece, but this time played the way it was meant to be heard. Harper followed the sound. Behind a stack of equipment cases, half hidden in shadow, sat an old, upright piano that someone had dragged out for ambience and forgotten. And at the bench, eyes half closed, fingers moving with a grace that defied explanation, was Marcus Cole. He didn't notice her at first. He was lost in the music, playing like he had nothing left to lose. Harper stood frozen, watching, listening. It wasn't just good, it was transcendent. Each note carried weight, loss, love, hope, grief. Everything he'd lived poured through his hands into the keys. When the final chord faded, the silence felt sacred. Marcus opened his eyes, saw her. "I thought you left," he said quietly. "I did." Her voice was barely a whisper. "But then you played." He stood slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeves. "Didn't think anyone would hear. That was Bach? Same piece I butchered on stage." "You didn't butcher it. You rushed the transitions. Hands got stiff. Too much tension in the shoulders." Harper crossed her arms. "You were listening." "You were shouting, Miss Quinn, not playing." The words stung, not because they were cruel, because they were true. "How did you know the piece?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. Then, "I played it once. For someone who mattered. A long time ago." Harper stepped closer. "You're not just a janitor, are you?" "No more than you're just a CEO." His eyes met hers. "We all hide in uniforms." The silence stretched between them. Not awkward, just heavy. Like a note held too long, waiting for resolution. "Why are you here?" Harper asked. "Tonight, I mean. You don't work galas." "Emma's asleep at the neighbors. I heard you were playing. I wanted to—" He stopped. "You wanted to what?" "I wanted to see if you'd remember who you are." Harper felt something crack inside her. "I don't know who that is anymore." "Yes, you do." Marcus stepped toward her. "She's the girl who sat at a piano and felt something before anyone told her she wasn't allowed to feel it. She's still in there, Harper. You just buried her under decades of proving you were worth hearing." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Your father was wrong." Marcus's voice was firm. "You were 12 years old, and he broke something in you. But broken things can heal. That's what I learned from Sarah. That's what Emma teaches me every day." Harper wiped her face. "You should have been on that stage tonight, not me. It wasn't my place." "Then where is your place?" She stepped closer. "Because clearly it's not behind a cart of cleaning supplies." He looked at her for a long moment. Something flickered behind his eyes. Grief, maybe, or something older. "My place," he said slowly, "is beside the person who needs me most." And with that, he stepped away from the piano, as if the song were finished. Harper watched him go, her heart pounding. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat at her penthouse piano, the one she hadn't touched in a decade, and played the piece he'd played, over and over, trying to find what he'd found. Somewhere around 3 a.m. she stopped, and she began to compose. Not Bach, not Chopin. Something new, something hers. She didn't know what it was yet, only that it mattered. The video surfaced 3 days later. Harper was in a board meeting when Jennifer rushed in, face pale. "We have a problem." By noon, it had gone viral. Someone had recorded them, Harper and Marcus, playing together in the lobby late at night. The camera was shaky, angled through the glass wall of the security booth. Amateur, unsteady. But the intimacy was undeniable. Their eyes meeting, their hands moving in tandem, the way they leaned toward each other without touching. The caption read, "When the janitor plays a duet with the CEO, and the piano remembers." And beneath it, 3 words,
Music, love, fire. Is this romance or resignation waiting to happen? Within hours, the story had mutated. Power ballad or power imbalance? CEO Harper Quinn caught in intimate moment with Janitor. Lyra Records faces backlash over workplace boundaries. Viral duet sparks ethics inquiry. Harper's phone exploded. Texts from board members, calls from investors. A message from Richard Quinn, her uncle, chairman of the board, demanding an immediate meeting. She found Marcus in the basement stairwell, wiping down handrails like nothing had happened. "You know," she said. He didn't look up. "I found out this morning. Someone in payroll winked at me and said, 'Nice duet, maestro.' I thought he was having a stroke." "This isn't funny." "No, it's not." Harper stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. "They're turning this into something it's not. They're saying, 'You're using me,' or 'I'm using you,' or 'This is some kind of power play.' And what do you think it is?" Harper stopped. Marcus finally looked at her. His face was calm, but his eyes held something she hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. "I think it's real," she said. "Whatever this is, it's the most honest thing I've touched in years." "Then why do you look like you're already running from it?" "Because I know how this ends," her voice cracked. "They'll drag my name, question my judgment, everything I built." "And you think I don't know how that feels?" Marcus's voice sharpened. "I gave up the only thing I was ever praised for. I vanished so my daughter could breathe. You think I don't know what it means to watch a life dissolve?" "I'm trying to protect you." "No," he shook his head. "You're trying to protect your image, and you're using me as the excuse to retreat." The words landed like a blow. He didn't flinch. "Let me ask you something, Harper. When was the last time you stayed in something messy? Something you couldn't script or schedule or control?" She couldn't answer. "That's what I thought." He turned back to his work. Harper stood there, paralyzed. Then, quietly, "Is that what you think I'll do? Run?" "I don't think it." Marcus didn't look at her. "I see it." The board meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. Harper arrived 20 minutes early, sat at the head of the table, waited. They filed in one by one. Richard Quinn last, his face tight with the practiced disappointment of a man who'd been waiting for her to fail. "Harper," he said, taking his seat, "we need to address the optics." "I'm aware." "The plan is simple. We issue a statement clarifying your relationship with Mr. Reed as non-romantic. Outline our zero-tolerance policy. Move forward." Harper looked around the table. 12 faces, some hostile, some sympathetic, all waiting for her to perform the role they expected. "It is romantic," she said. Silence. "I'm not going to lie to clean up your discomfort. I sat at that piano because I felt something real. I'm not ashamed of it." Richard's face hardened. This could cost the company millions. "Then maybe we should ask why we built something so fragile that a single moment of humanity can shake it." Another board member, Margot Lynn, VP of Marketing, leaned forward. "Harper, we're not asking you to apologize for feelings. We're asking you to take responsibility for the risk you introduced." "There's no risk in loving people," Harper said. "The risk is in pretending you don't." Silence. Richard closed his folder with a snap. "If you reject this agreement, we'll proceed with a vote of no confidence. You'll be removed with cause. That affects your severance, your legacy, everything." Harper looked at him. Really looked. This was her uncle, her father's brother, the man who'd watched her fight for every inch of ground in this company, who'd never quite believed she deserved her seat. I've carried this company through lawsuits, market crashes, and artist meltdowns, she said, her voice steady. I've worked 18-hour days for years, built brands that outsold every projection, mentored interns who became executives. And now you want me gone because I loved someone you didn't see coming? She stood. I'm not going to sign your lie, and I'm not going to beg to stay. If being human costs me my seat at this table, I'll build a better one. She reached into her bag and placed a small envelope in front of Richard. What's this? He asked. A personal donation to the Lyra Foundation, to fund music education for underprivileged kids. Name it after whoever you want, but don't let it go to waste. She turned to the room. I'm leaving, not because I'm ashamed, but because I've remembered who I am. No one moved as she walked out. She didn't take her nameplate, didn't say goodbye. Some endings don't need punctuation, just purpose. That night, she found Marcus sitting on a park bench near the hospital where Emma had her appointments. He looked up when she approached. You're not wearing the armor today. I left it in a boardroom downtown. What happened? I resigned. A long pause, then, they'll regret it. No, but I won't. She sat beside him. The city hummed around them. Traffic, sirens, the endless pulse of New York. You're different, Marcus said quietly. I remembered something. That the title next to your name means nothing if it costs you the music inside you. He went still. I watched you fight for your daughter, she continued. Heard you play music you hadn't touched in years. Saw you rebuild your soul, note by note. And somewhere in that, I realized I wanted to play again too. Not just piano. Life. Silence stretched between them. Then Marcus said, She's getting worse. Harper's heart stopped. Emma? More episodes, shorter breath. Her color fades faster. His voice was hollow. The doctors are talking about options, but I can't. The numbers don't add up. They never do. Harper reached for his hand. Then let me help. I can't ask you for that. You didn't ask. I'm offering. He shook his head. You don't understand. I've spent 7 years learning that some problems don't have solutions. They just have choices. And I don't know how to choose between my pride and my daughter's life. Then stop choosing. Harper squeezed his hand. Let me carry some of it. You shouldn't have to do this alone. Marcus looked at her. The guard in his expression cracked. Why? He whispered. Why do you care so much? Because you showed me something I forgot existed. The kind of love that doesn't calculate costs. The kind that just holds on. She moved closer. Let me hold on with you. The silence stretched. Then Marcus pulled her into an embrace. Fierce, desperate, human. Not romantic, not restrained. Just two people clinging to each other at the edge of impossible. And in that moment, Harper made a promise. She would do whatever it took to help Emma. Whatever it cost. Whatever came next. Because some fights are worth everything. And some people are worth fighting for. The next morning, Harper made phone calls she hadn't made in years. She reached out to every contact she had in pediatric cardiology. Called in favors from hospital administrators she'd met at charity galas. Pulled strings she didn't even know she still had access to. By noon, she'd secured a consultation with the leading pediatric cardiac surgeon in Boston, Dr. Catherine Wells, whose waitlist stretched 18 months. Emma had an appointment in 2 weeks. When she told Marcus, he went silent for a long time. How? He finally asked. I know people. Harper, this kind of appointment costs Don't. She held up her hand. Don't do that math. Not today. Just let me do this. Marcus sat down heavily on his worn couch. Emma was at school, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. I've spent 7 years doing everything myself, he said quietly, taking care of her, working nights, selling everything that wasn't essential. And now you walk in and move mountains in a single morning. That's not fair. I'm not saying it's fair. He looked up at her. I'm saying I don't know how to accept it. Harper knelt in front of him, taking his hands in hers. You're not accepting charity, Marcus. You're accepting love. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Her voice was firm. Charity is what you give to strangers to make yourself feel better. Love is what you give to people you can't bear to lose. Marcus stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. The wall he'd built over 7 years developing a crack. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. I don't know how to let someone in after so long. Neither do I. Harper squeezed his hands. But maybe we can figure it out together. The 2 weeks before Boston were a blur of preparation and fear. Emma had good days and bad days. Some mornings she'd bounce out of bed, full of energy, chattering about school and her drawings and the story she was still writing about the princess who lived in a piano. Other mornings she'd wake up gray-faced and breathless, and Marcus would hold her until the color returned. Harper was there for all of it. She showed up with soup when Emma was too tired to eat, brought coloring books and markers when Emma needed distraction, sat beside Marcus in hospital waiting rooms, saying nothing, just being present. One night, after a particularly bad episode, Emma asked Harper to stay. Will you sleep here? The little girl whispered, clutching her hand. Daddy always falls asleep in the chair, and I don't want to be alone. Harper looked at Marcus. He nodded, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Of course, sweetheart, Harper said. I'll be right here. She curled up beside Emma on the small bed, careful not to jostle any of the monitors. Emma pressed her head against Harper's shoulder and fell asleep within minutes. Marcus watched them from the doorway, his eyes wet. She trusts you, he said softly. Is that okay? It's more than okay. His voice broke. It's everything. 3 days before the Boston trip, Harper received a package at her apartment. Inside was a folder, worn, frayed at the edges, filled with handwritten sheet music. A note was tucked inside. I've been carrying this for 7 years. Maybe it's time someone else heard it. M. Harper opened the folder with trembling hands. The music was beautiful. Incomplete, but beautiful. Melodies that spiraled and dipped, harmonies that built and released. And in the margins, notes in Marcus's handwriting. For Sarah. For Emma. For whoever I become when I remember how to breathe. She sat at her piano and played through the pages, one by one. Some pieces were finished, most weren't. But they all carried the same thread. Loss transformed into love. Grief alchemized into hope. At the bottom of the stack, she found a single page separate from the rest. 4 bars. The same 4 bars she'd found on the music stand that first morning. Below them, a new line had been added in fresh ink. Finish this with me? Harper called him immediately. I got your package. And? Marcus, this music. It's extraordinary. Why haven't you shared it before? A long pause. Because I wrote most of it in the dark. In hospital rooms. In the apartment after Sarah died, when Emma was sleeping and I couldn't. It felt too raw, too personal. It's not too anything. It's honest. And honest is rare. Another pause, then, there's something I haven't told you. Harper's heart skipped. What? The chapel. Lincoln Chapel, on the edge of the city park. It used to be a concert hall before it closed. I played there once, years ago. It's been empty for a long time, but a nonprofit recently reopened it for community events. Okay. I want to play there again. One night. For Emma. For Sarah. For everyone who forgot I existed. His voice was steady, but she could hear the fear beneath it. I want to finish the song we started, and I want you there with me. Harper's throat tightened. Marcus. I know it's crazy. I know I haven't performed in almost a decade. I know I'm a janitor who polishes pianos instead of playing them. But Emma wrote me a letter. A letter? She hid it under the piano. Said it was for when I'm ready. She told me that if anything happens to her, she wants me to play our song. Not alone. In front of people. Where love can echo, she said. Harper closed her eyes. Tears slipped down her cheeks. When? She asked. I don't know. After Boston, maybe. If she's strong enough to hear it. She will be. Harper's voice hardened with determination. She's going to be fine. And when she is, we're going to fill that chapel with so much sound that Sarah hears it wherever she is. Marcus laughed. A wet, broken laugh. You really believe that? I believe in you. That's enough. Boston was cold and clinical and terrifying. The hospital was a maze of corridors and beeping machines. Dr. Wells was brilliant but blunt, the kind of surgeon who didn't waste words on comfort when facts would do. Her condition is operable, Dr. Wells said, reviewing Emma's scans. But there are risks. She's small for her age. Her heart has been compensating for years. The surgery is complex. What are the odds? Marcus asked, his voice steady despite his white knuckles. 70-30 in her favor, if we operate within the next month. Any longer and the numbers change. What does that mean? It means waiting isn't an option. Harper reached for Marcus's hand under the table. He gripped it like a lifeline. When can you do it? Harper asked. Dr. Wells checked her calendar. 3 weeks, December 14th. Marcus exhaled. That's 2 days before Christmas. I know, I'm sorry, but this is the soonest opening I have, and every day matters. They scheduled the surgery, signed the consent forms, listened to lists of risks that sounded like warnings from another universe. Afterward, they sat in the hospital cafeteria, drinking coffee that tasted like despair. December 14th, Marcus said quietly. She'll be in surgery while everyone else is decorating trees. She'll be fighting, Harper corrected. And when she wakes up, we'll give her the best Christmas she's ever had. Marcus looked at her. You say we like it's natural. Isn't it? He was quiet for a moment. Then, I spent so long convinced I had to do everything alone, that asking for help meant I'd failed somehow. Sarah used to fight with me about it. She'd say, Marcus, you're not a one-man orchestra. Even symphonies need other musicians. Harper smiled. She sounds wise. She was. Smarter than me, that's for sure. He turned his coffee cup in his hands. She'd like you, I think. You've got the same stubbornness, the same refusal to quit. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. Marcus met her eyes. Harper, I need to tell you something. Okay? I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Harper's breath caught. It scares me, Marcus continued, because the last time I loved someone like this, I lost her, and I don't know if I can survive that again. Harper reached across the table and took his hands. I'm scared too, she said. I've spent my whole life running from anything that could hurt me, building walls so high that nobody could get close enough to leave. And then you showed up, polishing a piano like it was sacred, and suddenly I wanted to tear every wall down.
So what do? We do it scared. She squeezed his hands. We hold on to each other and we do it scared. Because the alternative, going back to being numb, being alone, that's worse than any risk. Marcus leaned forward and kissed her. Gentle, slow, like a question and an answer wrapped in one. When they pulled apart, Harper whispered, "December 14th. She's going to make it." "How do you know?" "Because she's your daughter, and Cole's stubbornness runs in the blood." He laughed, and for the first time in weeks, it sounded real. The days before the surgery passed in a haze of preparation and prayer. Harper worked with the nonprofit that ran Lincoln Chapel to secure a date for Marcus's concert, January 15th, exactly 1 month after Emma's surgery. It gave them something to work toward, a light at the end of the tunnel. Emma, despite everything, remained irrepressibly hopeful.
"Daddy," she said one night, curled up on the couch with her drawing pad, "when I get my new heart, will it play music too?" Marcus knelt beside her. "What do you mean, Bug?" "My old heart knows all our songs. It beats along when you play. Will the new one remember?" Marcus's throat tightened. "The new one will learn, and you'll teach it. Every song, every melody, every beat." Emma nodded seriously. "Okay, I'll be a good teacher." "You already are," Marcus whispered. "You've taught me more than anyone in my life." "Even Mommy?" "Even Mommy." He pulled her into a hug. "She'd be so proud of you, Emma. So incredibly proud." "I know," Emma said with a matter-of-fact confidence of a child. "She tells me sometimes, in my dreams." December 14th arrived like an executioner. Harper met Marcus at the hospital at 5 a.m. Emma was already in pre-op, wearing a hospital gown covered in cartoon unicorns, clutching the teddy bear that had seen her through every procedure. "Miss Harper!" Emma's face lit up when she saw her. "You came! Of course I came!" Harper sat on the edge of the bed, taking Emma's small hand. "I told you I'd be here when your new heart starts to beat." "You remembered." "I remember everything. That's my superpower." Emma giggled. Then her face grew serious. "Miss Harper, if something bad happens, nothing bad is going to happen." "But if it does," Emma insisted, "will you take care of Daddy? He pretends he's okay, but he's not very good at being alone." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "I promise." "And will you finish the song? The one that never sleeps? Daddy started it, but it needs both of you to make it whole." "I promise that too." Emma nodded, satisfied. Then she looked at her father. "Daddy, don't be scared." Marcus's voice cracked. "I'm not scared, Bug." "Yes, you are. I can always tell." She reached up and touched his face. "But it's okay. Being scared means you love something, and you love me a lot." "So you're probably really scared." Marcus laughed through his tears. "You're too smart for your own good." "I know," Emma grinned. "Now give me a hug, a really big one, the kind that lasts until I wake up." He hugged her, held her like she was made of starlight and could slip through his fingers at any moment. "I love you more than music," he whispered. "I love you more than marshmallows," she whispered back. And then the nurses came, and they wheeled her away, and Marcus was left standing in the hallway, with Harper's hand in his, and an emptiness in his chest that no amount of hoping could fill. The surgery took 7 hours. 7 hours of pacing and praying and pretending to read magazines neither of them could focus on. 7 hours of nurses with no updates, and doctors who were too busy saving his daughter to explain what was happening. Harper didn't leave his side once. At hour 3, she made him eat a sandwich. At hour 5, she held him while he cried. At hour 6, she played them the melody she'd been working on, hummed it quietly just for him, a promise disguised as music. Finally, at 3:47 p.m., Dr. Wells appeared. Marcus jumped to his feet. Is she? She's out of surgery. Dr. Wells's face was tired but calm. Her heart took the repair well. She's in recovery now. It's going to be a long road, but she made it. Marcus's knees buckled. Harper caught him, held him upright. She made it? He whispered. She made it, Dr. Wells confirmed. You can see her in about an hour, once she's stable. The doctor walked away. Marcus turned to Harper, his face crumpling. She made it, he said again, like he couldn't quite believe it. I told you. Harper pulled him into her arms. Cole's stubbornness. He laughed and cried at the same time, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. And somewhere in the depths of the hospital, a 7-year-old girl with a new heart was dreaming of pianos with wings and songs that never end. When they finally let Marcus into the recovery room, Emma was still sleeping. She looked so small in the hospital bed. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped in steady rhythm. But her color was better. Her breathing was even. And when Marcus took her hand, her fingers curled around his in instinct. Hey, Bug, he whispered. You did it. You're so brave. Emma didn't respond, but her heart monitor kept its steady beat. A new rhythm. A fresh start. Harper stood in the doorway, watching. She'd never seen anything more beautiful than this broken man holding his daughter's hand, whispering songs she couldn't hear. That night, Emma woke up. Her first words were, "Did we win?" Marcus laughed, tears streaming down his face. Yeah, Bug. We won. Good, she smiled drowsily. I told my old heart to teach the new one all the songs. I think it listened. I'm sure it did. Emma's eyes found Harper. You stayed. I promised, didn't I? You did. Emma's smile widened. Daddy, I think she's a keeper. Marcus looked at Harper. Yeah, I think so too. The recovery was slow but steady. Emma spent 2 weeks in the hospital, then another month of careful monitoring at home. She couldn't run or jump or do any of the things 7-year-olds love to do. But she could draw. She could write. And every day she asked about the concert. When can I hear the song, Daddy? The one that never sleeps. January 15th, Marcus promised, at Lincoln Chapel. And you're going to be in the front row. Emma clapped her hands. Can Miss Harper play too? Marcus looked at Harper, who'd been spending more and more nights at their apartment, becoming part of the family without anyone acknowledging it out loud. What do you say? He asked. Want to finish it together? Harper smiled. I thought you'd never ask. They practiced every night. After Emma went to sleep, Marcus and Harper would sit at the old upright piano in his living room, working through the pieces he'd written over the years. Some needed adjustments, some needed endings. All of them needed Harper's touch, her instinct for when to push and when to pull back. You're better than you think, Marcus said one night, watching her fingers dance across the keys. I had a good teacher. Your father? No, she looked at him. You. Marcus smiled. I didn't teach you anything. I just reminded you what you already knew. Same thing. The night before the concert, Emma couldn't sleep. What if nobody comes? She asked, lying in bed with her teddy bear. Marcus sat beside her. Then we'll play for the empty chairs. Music doesn't need an audience to matter. But I want people to hear you, Daddy. I want them to know you're not just the janitor. You're magic. His heart clenched. I'm not magic, Bug. I'm just a guy who loves you. Same thing, Emma said seriously. Love is the most magic thing there is. He kissed her forehead. How'd you get so wise? Mommy taught me. In my dreams. Marcus held her hand until she fell asleep. Then he went to the living room, where Harper was waiting, and he played the song they'd written together, start to finish, without stopping. When the last note faded, Harper wiped her eyes. "She's right, you know. You are magic." "Only with you," Marcus said. "Only with both of you." January 15th dawned cold and clear. Lincoln Chapel was small but beautiful. Old wooden pews, stained glass windows, a grand piano at center stage that had been donated decades ago and forgotten. Marcus stood backstage, hands trembling. "I can't do this," he whispered. Harper took his hands. "Yes, you can. I haven't performed in 9 years. What if I freeze? What if I forget everything? What if—" "Then you forget, and you start again, and I'll be right there beside you."
She squeezed his hands. "You're not alone anymore, Marcus. Remember?" He took a deep breath, nodded. "Okay," he said. "Let's do this." The chapel was full, not with critics or industry executives, with real people. Nurses from the hospital, teachers from Emma's school, janitors from Lyra Records, Jennifer, Harper's former assistant, who'd come to show her support, even a few board members who'd had a change of heart. And in the front row, sitting in a wheelchair with a blanket over her legs, was Emma Cole. Marcus walked onto the stage. No introduction, no fanfare. Just him and the piano and the silence that held its breath. He sat down, placed his hands on the keys, and then he played. The music that poured from him wasn't just notes, it was everything. Every night he'd spent in hospital waiting rooms. Every morning he'd woken up afraid. Every moment he'd doubted himself. Every moment he'd kept going anyway. He played Sarah's lullaby, the one he'd written when she was dying. He played Emma's song, the melody that had come to him the night she took her first steps. He played the piece he and Harper had written together, the one that had no name, only feeling. And when he reached the final movement, Harper walked onto the stage. The audience gasped. She sat beside him on the bench. Their hands moved together, filling in each other's gaps, building something neither could have created alone. The music swelled, the chapel filled with sound, and in the front row, Emma Cole closed her eyes and smiled. When the last chord faded, there was silence. Then Emma started clapping. One by one, the audience joined her. The applause built and built until it became something else. Not just appreciation, but recognition. Not just noise, but love. Marcus stood, took Harper's hand. They bowed together. And then Emma's voice cut through the chaos. "That's my daddy and my Miss Harper." Everyone laughed. Everyone cried. And Marcus Cole, for the first time in 9 years, felt like he'd finally come home. The applause lasted longer than Marcus could measure. He stood on that stage, Harper's hand in his, watching a room full of strangers cry and laugh and clap like their lives depended on it. And in the front row, Emma Cole, 7 years old, heart brand new, spirit unbreakable, was bouncing in her wheelchair, shouting his name like he'd just scored the winning touchdown. "Daddy, Daddy, that was amazing!" Marcus laughed. The sound surprised him. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere he'd forgotten existed. He walked to the edge of the stage, knelt down, and opened his arms. Emma practically launched herself into them. "Easy, Bug," he whispered, holding her tight. "Remember what the doctor said." "The doctor said I'm a miracle." Emma pulled back, grinning. "Miracles don't have to be careful." Harper joined them, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "She's got a point." "Don't encourage her." Too late. Harper reached out and smoothed Emma's hair. "You were the best audience member I've ever had." "I wasn't just watching.
Emma said seriously. I was listening with my new heart. It learned all the songs already. Marcus felt his throat tighten. All of them? Every single one. Even the sad parts. Especially the sad parts. Emma touched her chest. The sad parts make the happy parts matter more. Harper looked at Marcus. He looked back at her. Neither of them could speak. Can we go get ice cream now? Emma asked, completely unaware that she just summarized the entire human experience in a single sentence. Marcus laughed again. Yeah, Bug, we can get ice cream. The weeks after the concert blurred together in the best possible way. Letters arrived, dozens of them, then hundreds. People who'd seen videos of the performance online. People who'd heard about the janitor turned pianist and the CEO who gave up her empire. People who said things like, "You made me want to play again," and "I called my daughter for the first time in 3 years," and "I thought I'd forgotten how to feel, but then I heard your music." Marcus didn't know what to do with any of it. "They're talking about us like we're some kind of fairy tale," he said one night, sitting on the floor of his apartment, surrounded by envelopes. Harper sat across from him, sorting through the pile. "Maybe we are. Fairy tales aren't real." "Says who?" She held up a letter from a woman in Ohio whose husband had died the same year Sarah did. This woman drove 4 hours to see the concert. She said it was the first time she'd felt hope since the funeral. "That's real, Marcus. That's as real as it gets." He picked up another letter. A teenage boy from Brooklyn who'd been bullied for loving classical music. He'd watched the viral video of Marcus playing and decided not to quit piano after all. "I don't deserve this," Marcus said quietly.
Yes, you do. Harper moved closer, taking his hands. You spent 9 years believing you weren't enough, that giving up the stage made you less than you were. But look at what you did. You raised a daughter who thinks love is magic. You played music that made strangers remember how to hope. You showed the world that sacrifice isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing there is. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah would have loved this," he finally said. "The letters, the attention. She always said I was too humble for my own good." "She sounds like a smart woman." "She was." He smiled. "She would have liked you, too. Probably would have said you were exactly what I needed. Someone stubborn enough to break through my walls." Harper laughed. "High praise." "The highest." Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you sitting on the floor?" "Reading letters," Marcus said. "People who liked the concert." "Can I see?" Harper patted the spot beside her. Emma patted over and plopped down, immediately reaching for the nearest envelope. "This one has a drawing," she announced, pulling out a crayon picture of a piano with wings. "Look, Daddy, someone else knows about flying pianos." Marcus looked at the drawing, looked at his daughter, looked at Harper. "Maybe," he said slowly, "we should do something with all of this." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the letters, the response. People seem to connect with what we're doing. What if we made it bigger? What if we helped other people find their music again?" Harper's eyes lit up. "Like a foundation?" "I don't know, maybe. Something that brings music to people who can't afford it. Kids in hospitals, families who've lost someone, anyone who's been told they're not worth hearing." Emma looked up. "Like you were, Daddy?" Marcus swallowed. "Yeah, Bug, like I was." "And like Miss Harper?" Harper nodded. "Like me, too." Emma grinned. "Then we should definitely do it." "We can call it The Song That Never Ends." Marcus and Harper exchanged a look. "That's actually perfect," Harper said. "I know," Emma shrugged. "I'm very smart." The foundation launched 3 months later. Harper used her business expertise to handle the paperwork, the logistics, the endless meetings with lawyers and accountants. Marcus used his music to set the tone, recording pieces that would be used in hospital wards, composing simple melodies for beginners, designing programs that made classical music accessible to anyone who wanted to learn. They worked side by side, day after day, building something neither of them could have built alone. Emma was their unofficial mascot. She drew posters for fundraisers, wrote thank you notes to donors, and insisted on attending every planning meeting, even when she fell asleep halfway through.
She's going to be a CEO someday, Jennifer, who'd left Lyra Records to join the foundation, said one afternoon, watching Emma organize a stack of folders with terrifying efficiency. God help us all, Marcus replied. The first official event was held at Lincoln Chapel on the 1-year anniversary of Emma's surgery. Marcus hadn't wanted to make it a big deal, but Harper insisted. People need to see what hope looks like, she said. They need to see that the story didn't end. It's still going. So they opened the doors, set up chairs, invited everyone who'd been part of their journey: doctors, nurses, teachers, neighbors, strangers who'd written letters that changed their lives. The chapel was packed. Marcus stood backstage, adjusting his tie for the 15th time. I still can't believe this is happening. Harper straightened his collar. You've performed here before. That was different. That was for Emma. For us. This is for everyone else, she smiled. That's what happens when you stop hiding, Marcus. The world shows up. Emma appeared, wearing a blue dress Harper had helped her pick out. Her scar peeked out above the neckline, but she wore it proudly now, a badge of honor, not shame. Daddy, are you nervous? A little. Don't be. She took his hand. Remember what you told me? Music doesn't need an audience to matter, but audiences need music to remember they matter. Marcus knelt to her level. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just finally paying attention. Harper laughed. She's got you there. The concert was unlike anything Marcus had experienced before. He didn't just play. He talked. Told stories between pieces. Explained why he'd written each melody, what he'd been feeling, what he'd been afraid of. He talked about Sarah, about Emma, about the night he'd sat at a piano for the first time in years and remembered who he was. And when he introduced Harper, asking her to join him for the final piece, the audience went silent. Most of you know her story, Marcus said into the microphone. The CEO who gave up everything to become something more. But what you don't know is that she's the reason I'm standing here at all. She heard music in me when I'd forgotten how to listen. She reminded me that being broken doesn't mean being finished. Harper walked onto the stage, her eyes wet, but her posture steady. This piece, Marcus continued, doesn't have a name. We just call it the song that never ends. Because that's what love is, isn't it? It doesn't stop when things get hard. It doesn't disappear when people leave. It echoes, forever, in everyone who hears it. He sat at the piano. Harper sat beside him. And together they played. The melody started soft, tentative, searching, like two people finding each other in the dark. Then it built, layer upon layer, harmony upon harmony, until it became something vast and luminous and alive. In the front row, Emma closed her eyes and pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her new heart beat in time with the music. In the back, Jennifer wiped tears from her cheeks, remembering all the time she'd watched Harper work 18-hour days and wondering if she'd ever see her smile. Scattered throughout the audience, strangers held hands with strangers, united by something they couldn't name but could feel. A sense of belonging, of being seen, of mattering to someone, somewhere. When the final note faded, the silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then Emma stood up. "That's my family," she announced to the entire room. "And they're not done yet." The laughter that followed broke the spell. The applause that followed shook the walls. Marcus pulled Harper into a hug right there on stage. She buried her face in his shoulder, and for a moment, they weren't performers or founders or anything the world wanted them to be. They were just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate lives and decided to build something new. After the concert, Marcus found Emma in the garden behind the chapel, sitting on a bench beneath a dogwood tree. "Hey, Bug, what are you doing out here?" "Talking to Mommy." Marcus sat beside her. "Yeah? What are you telling her?" "That you're happy now. That Miss Harper makes you smile the way you used to. That I'm okay." Emma looked up at him. "She says she's proud of you." "She does?" "Uh-huh. She says you kept your promise. You didn't let the music die." Marcus's throat tightened. "I almost did. For a long time." "But you didn't. That's what matters." Emma leaned against his arm. "Daddy, do you think Mommy sent Miss Harper to us?" He was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "I don't know, Bug. But I know that if she did, it would be exactly like her. Always looking out for us, even from far away." "I think she did." Emma nodded firmly. "I think she saw you were sad and said, 'My Marcus needs someone stubborn, someone who won't give up.' And then she found Miss Harper." Marcus laughed softly. "That does sound like your mom." "It's okay to love Miss Harper, you know." Emma looked at him with eyes far too wise for 7 years old. "Mommy wouldn't be mad. She'd be glad." "How do you know?" "Because love isn't like pie, Daddy. It doesn't run out. The more you give, the more you have." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I love you, Emma Cole." "I love you too, Daddy." She pulled back and grinned. "Now can we go get cake? I saw cake inside." "Yeah, Bug. Let's go get cake." 6 months later, the foundation had grown beyond anything they'd imagined. Music therapy programs in 12 hospitals, scholarship funds for underprivileged students, community concerts in neighborhoods that had never heard live classical music, a recording studio where people could tell their stories through song. Harper worked tirelessly, channeling the same energy she'd once poured into quarterly reports into something that actually mattered. Marcus composed and performed, traveling to hospitals and schools and community centers, bringing music to people who needed it most. And Emma was always with them, drawing pictures for patients, writing songs for donors, reminding everyone that even the smallest hearts could hold the biggest dreams. One evening, after a particularly long day, Harper found Marcus sitting alone at the piano in their apartment. They'd moved in together 3 months prior, a decision that had felt both terrifying and inevitable. "You okay?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different my life is now." He played a few soft notes. "A year ago, I was pushing a mop through empty hallways, convinced that was all I'd ever be. And now you're changing lives. We're changing lives." He turned to look at her. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have. You just didn't believe it yet." "Maybe." He was quiet for a moment. "Harper, I need to ask you something." "Okay." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Harper's breath caught. "I'm not good at speeches," Marcus said, his voice rough. "I'm better with music. But I need you to hear this in words, so there's no confusion." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, not flashy, not expensive, but beautiful in its honesty. I spent 9 years believing I'd never love anyone the way I loved Sarah. And I was right. I don't love you the way I loved her. I love you the way I love you. Different. New. Just as deep. Harper's eyes filled with tears. You crashed into my life when I wasn't looking. You challenged me when I wanted to hide. You saw music in me when I'd forgotten how to hear it. And you love my daughter like she's your own. She is my own, Harper whispered. She has been for a long time. I know, Marcus smiled. That's why I'm asking you this. Not just for me, for us, for all three of us. Marcus, Harper Quinn, will you marry me? She laughed and cried at the same time. Yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. From the hallway, a small voice shrieked, "Finally!" They broke apart to see Emma standing in the doorway, hands over her mouth, eyes wide with delight. "How long have you been there?" Marcus asked. "Long enough. I knew it. I knew you were going to ask." Emma ran over and threw herself at both of them. "Does this mean Miss Harper is my real mom now?" Harper looked at Marcus. He nodded. "If you want me to be," Harper said carefully. "I've wanted you to be forever." Emma hugged her tight. "You're already my mom. Now it's just official." Harper held her close, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Emma Cole." "I love you too, Mom." It was the first time Emma had called her that. It wouldn't be the last. The wedding was small. They held it at Lincoln Chapel, of course, the place where everything had changed. 50 guests, no press, no fanfare, just the people who mattered. Emma was the flower girl, scattering rose petals with more enthusiasm than precision. Jennifer stood as Harper's maid of honor, still amazed at the transformation she'd witnessed. Marcus's neighbor, the woman who'd watched Emma all those nights while he worked, sat in the front row, crying happy tears. Marcus wore a simple gray suit. Harper wore a white dress that flowed like music. When they exchanged vows, they didn't recite anything traditional. They played. Marcus started with a soft melody, the first 4 bars he'd written all those years ago, the ones Harper had found on the music stand. Harper answered with the phrase she'd composed in response. Back and forth, call and response, building the song they'd written together into something complete. When the last note faded, the officiant smiled. "I've never seen vows quite like that before, but I think I understood them perfectly." He looked at the gathered crowd. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Marcus kissed Harper while Emma cheered and the audience applauded. And somewhere, in the space between notes, Sarah Cole smiled. 2 years later, the foundation had become something extraordinary. The Song That Never Ends operated in 30 states. Thousands of children had received music education who never would have otherwise. Hundreds of families had found healing through the programs Marcus and Harper had built. But the moment Marcus would remember forever happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. He was in Emma's room, helping her practice piano. At 9 years old, she was already better than most adults. Her perfect pitch combined with an intuition that couldn't be taught. "You're rushing the middle section," Marcus said gently. "I know, but I like it fast." "Fast isn't always better." "Says you," Emma grinned. "Mom says the same thing about you." Marcus laughed. It still made his heart skip every time Emma called Harper Mom. 2 years, and it still felt like a miracle. "Play it again," he said. "Slower this time. Feel each note before you move to the next." Emma sighed dramatically, but did as he asked. The melody filled the room, slower now, more intentional. beautiful. When she finished, she turned to him. "Daddy?" "Yeah, Bug?" "Do you think I could play at the chapel someday? Like you and Mom?" "You want to perform?" "I want people to hear me."
Emma touched the keys softly. "I want them to know that even broken hearts can learn new songs." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You can perform whenever you're ready. We'll make it happen."
"Promise?"
"Promise." Emma nodded seriously. Then she turned back to the piano and started playing something new, a melody he didn't recognize. "What's that?" he asked.
"Something I wrote. It's called The Beginning, because that's what Mommy says we are. Not an ending, but a beginning that keeps going."
Marcus listened to his daughter play music she'd created from her own heart, and he understood something he'd been too afraid to believe for most of his life. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. The concert at Lincoln Chapel had become an annual tradition. Every December 14th, the anniversary of Emma's surgery, they gathered to celebrate. Not just the Cole family, but everyone whose lives had been touched by their story. The audience grew larger each year, but the feeling remained the same: intimate, sacred, hopeful. On the 5th anniversary, Emma took the stage alone. She was 11 now, tall for her age, with her father's gray-green eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. The scar on her chest was hidden beneath her dress, but she wore a small heart pendant, a gift from Harper, as a reminder of where she'd been. The audience fell silent as she sat at the piano. "Hi," she said into the microphone, her voice steady. "Most of you know my story. I was born with a broken heart. I had surgery. I almost died. But I'm here." She paused, letting the words settle. "My dad taught me that music is how we say the things words can't hold. My mom taught me that love is choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. And together, they taught me that endings aren't really endings. They're just beginnings we haven't recognized yet." She placed her hands on the keys. "This song is for everyone who's ever been told they weren't worth hearing. For everyone who's lost something they thought they couldn't live without. For everyone who's still fighting, still hoping, still trying to find their way home." She looked at her parents in the front row. "And it's for you, Daddy. And you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me that the song never has to end." She began to play. The melody was simple at first, a child's composition, sweet and unguarded. But as it built, layers emerged: complexity, depth. The influence of her father's classical training woven with her mother's business-minded precision. Something entirely her own. Marcus reached for Harper's hand. "She's incredible," Harper whispered. "She's ours," Marcus replied. When Emma finished, the audience didn't just applaud. They rose to their feet, tears streaming, hearts full. Emma stood, bowed awkwardly, then ran straight to her parents. "Did you like it?" she asked breathlessly.
"Like it?" Marcus hugged her tight. "Bug, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "Even better than yours?"
"Way better than mine." Harper laughed and joined the hug. "You're going to change the world someday, Emma Cole."
"I already am," Emma said matter-of-factly. "We all are. Every time we play."
Later that night, after the guests had gone and the chapel had emptied, the Cole family sat together in the front pew. The piano gleamed under the low lights. The stained glass windows cast colored shadows across the floor. The silence felt full rather than empty, like it was holding something precious.
"Do you remember," Harper said quietly, "the first thing you ever said to me?"
Marcus smiled. "I said, Chopin isn't a party trick. It's prayer set to music."
"And I thought you were crazy."
"I probably was. Still am, maybe."
"Definitely."
Harper leaned her head on his shoulder.
"But I'm crazy too." So it works out. Emma, who'd been half asleep between them, stirred.
Can we come back next year?
Every year, Marcus promised, as long as you want.
What about forever?
Forever works. Emma closed her eyes, satisfied. Within minutes, she was asleep, her hand still curled around her father's. Marcus looked at Harper over their daughter's head. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For hearing me. For staying. For turning the worst part of my life into the beginning of something beautiful." Harper's eyes glistened. "You did the same for me. You showed me that the music never really stopped. I just forgot how to listen." "And now?" "Now I hear it everywhere," she smiled. "In Emma's laugh, in your compositions, in the letters from people whose lives we've changed, in the silence between notes where love lives." Marcus kissed her forehead. "You know what I've learned," he said. "After everything, the loss, the grief, the years of hiding." "What?" "That the song never really ends. It just changes shape. Passes from one person to another, echoes through generations. We're not the end of anything, Harper. We're just one verse in a melody that's bigger than all of us." Harper nodded. "And Emma?" "Emma's the next verse. And whoever she touches, they'll be the verse after that. On and on, forever." "The song that never ends." "Exactly." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the moonlight stream through the stained glass, painting their sleeping daughter in colors of blue and gold. Outside, the city hummed with the chaos of 1,000 stories unfolding. But inside the chapel, there was only peace, only love, only the certain knowledge that some things, the important things, never really fade. They endure. They echo. They sing. Marcus Cole had spent 9 years believing his music died with his wife. He'd pushed mops through empty hallways, convinced that survival was the most he could hope for. He'd hidden from the world, from his talent, from the possibility of ever feeling whole again. But he'd been wrong. Music doesn't die. It waits. It hides in the silence, patient as prayer, until someone brave enough comes along to set it free. And love, real love, the kind that costs everything, doesn't diminish when shared. It multiplies. It transforms grief into gratitude, loss into legacy, endings into beginnings. Harper Quinn had learned that too. She'd built an empire on ambition and fear, convincing herself that success was the same as worth. It took a janitor with broken dreams and a daughter with a broken heart to show her the truth. Worth isn't earned, it's recognized, in the eyes of people who see you, in the hands of people who reach for you, in the music you make together when words aren't enough. And Emma, brave, wise, impossible Emma, had understood from the beginning what it took her parents years to learn. Love is the most magic thing there is. The song never has to end. You just have to keep playing. On a cold January night, in a small chapel at the edge of a city park, a family walked out into the moonlight. A father carried his sleeping daughter. A mother held the door. And behind them, the piano sat silent, waiting for the next verse of a song that would echo through generations. Because some stories don't end. They become the beginning of something even more beautiful. And that is exactly what love does.